It was a quiet evening on the colony world called Vereen 5. The twin suns had set behind the silver towers, leaving the city glowing in soft blue lights. Ethan, a young human engineer, lived in a small apartment on the 23rd floor. It wasn't much, but it was home. He shared the place with an alien woman named Lyra, a researcher from the planet Thalrin. She had smooth purple skin, long lavender hair, and bright white markings that glowed gently whenever she was thinking. They had been roommates for almost 6 months, polite to each other, never close, never personal. That night, Ethan was late for his shift. He had just finished a shower, steam still drifting around the small bathroom. He grabbed a towel and hurried toward his room, the door half open, music playing softly from his tablet. He was in a rush, thinking of work deadlines and power circuits. Not of who might walk in. Lyra usually kept to herself. Her research projects filled her nights. She studied emotional resonance between species, though Ethan never fully understood what that meant. Sometimes he would see the light patterns on her skin flicker like tiny constellations. When she was deep in thought, she always smiled politely, always distant. But that night, things changed. Lyra had been working for 16 hours straight and was half asleep. She walked toward the shared storage room, her mind still busy with data numbers. The doors in the apartment were almost identical, and in her tired state, she didn't notice that she had opened Ethan's door instead. Ethan was standing by his bed, shirtless, drying his hair. When he turned around, his eyes met Lyra's. For a second, both froze. The room felt silent. Only the faint hum of the air recycler filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. The markings on her face and neck flared bright silver. Her breath caught. She looked shocked, almost frightened. Ethan's hand froze mid-air, towel half dropped. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I thought this was the supply room, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan blinked, his heart pounding. It's, my room, he said quietly. She stood there for another heartbeat, staring at him like she had just seen something forbidden. Her skin light glowed brighter, then dimmed again. She turned sharply and ran out of the room. The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss. Ethan stood still for a few seconds, feeling his face burn red, his heart still racing. He didn't understand what just happened. It wasn't like it was the first time someone had walked in by accident. But something in Lyra's expression stayed in his mind. A look that was not just embarrassment, it was confusion, fear, and something else he couldn't name. The rest of the night felt heavy. He couldn't stop thinking about her reaction. He could almost see her glowing eyes again every time he blinked. He tried to sleep, but his thoughts kept circling. What had she seen that scared her so much? The next morning, Lyra didn't come out of her room. Her door stayed locked. Ethan made breakfast, hoping she would join him, but she didn't. He left her a note on the counter, saying it was okay, that it was just an accident. He hoped it would make things less awkward, but the silence that followed was worse than before. Later that evening, he came home early. The lights were dim, the apartment quiet except for the faint hum of Lyra's machines. As he walked past her room, he heard a strange sound, like a low vibration, almost like an electrical pulse. It made the hair on his arms rise. He stopped and listened inside her room. Lyra sat on the floor surrounded by glowing screens, her breathing uneven. Her hands pressed against her chest where the light patterns on her skin were flickering wildly. Her mind was in chaos. Thalrin culture had strict emotional control, but the image of the human man standing unguarded had triggered something deep in her biology, something she was trained to suppress. Her people believed that visual connection to another's raw state could create an emotional resonance, an energy link. It was a phenomenon so rare that it was mostly myth. But as she remembered that moment, she felt something pulse through her chest, like her heartbeat wasn't her own anymore. Ethan knocked gently. "Lyra, you okay?" She quickly turned off the lights, her voice low. "Yes, I'm fine, just tired." He hesitated, wanting to ask more, but decided to leave it. He walked away, not seeing how the light beneath her skin pulsed once more, this time in sync with his footsteps. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan could feel something strange. The air felt heavier, like the room was breathing with him. He closed his eyes, trying to calm down, but in the quiet, he could almost hear another heartbeat beside his own. Slow, steady alien, Lyra sat awake in her room, staring at her reflection, the glow of her markings fading softly. She whispered to herself, "It wasn't supposed to happen." Her hand trembled as she touched her heart. Humans aren't supposed to connect. Outside, the twin moons of Vereen 5 drifted past the window, bathing the apartment in pale blue light. Two beings from different worlds, now unknowingly linked by one accidental moment. Neither of them could have guessed that this simple mistake would change everything that came after. The next morning came quietly. The suns of Vereen 5 rose above the city's glass towers, spilling golden light across the skyline. But inside the small apartment, silence ruled everything. Ethan sat at the table staring at his cold breakfast. Lyra's door remained closed. He could see the faint blue glow slipping out from under the edge, the same glow that always came from her research devices. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He wanted to pretend everything was normal, but it wasn't. The air felt heavier, thicker, like invisible static. When he tried to focus on his tablet, his thoughts wandered back to that single awkward moment. Lyra's shocked expression, the brightness of her skin, the way she had looked almost afraid. By the third day, nothing had changed. She left early and returned late, hardly speaking when she did. Her voice was quiet, distant, polite but cold. Ethan started to feel guilty. Maybe she thought humans had no sense of privacy. Maybe she was ashamed or angry, he didn't know. But he wanted to make things right one evening. He stood outside her door with 2 mugs of coffee. He hesitated for a long time before knocking. "Lyra, you busy?" he asked softly. There was a pause, then a quiet voice. "No." "Come in." The door opened with a hiss. Her room was dim, filled with faint blue lights and floating holograms of energy patterns. The walls pulsed slowly, glowing like veins of light. She looked up from her screen, her eyes tired, the markings on her arms faint and dull. "I brought coffee," he said awkwardly, placing 1 cup on her desk. "I figured you might need a break." She nodded gently. "Thank you," she said, her tone calm but empty. Ethan sat down on the edge of a chair, glancing around. "You've been working hard," he said. Trying to start a conversation, Lyra looked at him for a long second, then looked away. "I have to," she whispered. "It helps me keep control." "Control?" he repeated, confused. She hesitated, her glowing markings flickering slightly. "It's nothing, just my species has to manage emotional energy. If it gets too strong, it affects the body." Ethan frowned, remembering how her markings had flared that night. "Is this about what happened the other day?" Lyra's hands froze, her breathing caught. "Please don't talk about it," she said quickly. Her voice trembling, he nodded slowly. "Okay, I won't," he said softly, though the worry didn't fade. For a moment they sat in silence. The only sound was the quiet hum of her machines. Then suddenly one of the devices sparked. Lights flickering around them, the air vibrated faintly. Ethan looked up, startled. "What was that?" Lyra stood quickly, her skin glowing again. "Nothing. Just a resonant spike," she said, typing fast on her console. But Ethan could feel the air shift around him. It was warm, almost like a heartbeat pulsing in the room. He stepped closer. "Lyra, are you sure you're okay?" She turned toward him slowly, her glowing eyes locking with his. "No," she whispered. "I'm not." Ethan froze, unsure what to say. She looked scared, but not of him. More like she was afraid of herself. "Ever since that day," she continued, her voice shaking, "I can feel something I shouldn't. I can sense your emotions, your heartbeat, even your thoughts sometimes." Ethan blinked, stunned. "That's impossible," he said. "For you, maybe," she replied softly. "But my kind, we share emotion through energy, through resonance. We can feel those we are close to. But this is something else." Ethan's mind raced. "You mean we're connected?" She nodded slowly. "When I walked in that day, my field reacted to yours. I think it created an empath link." He tried to understand. "Like a telepathic bond?" She shook her head. "Not exactly. It's emotional, not mental. I don't hear your thoughts, but I feel them," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have looked at you. I didn't mean to, but it happened. And now our energies are mixed." Ethan rubbed his forehead, half in disbelief. "So that's why the lights flicker. Why I can't stop thinking about it." Lyra nodded. "It's why I can't sleep," she whispered. "Every time you feel something, my body reacts, and every time I suppress it, the energy grows unstable." He looked at her, worry filling his voice. "Can it be fixed?" "I don't know," she said. "No one has ever recorded a link between a Thalrin and a human before." Ethan took a slow breath. "Then we'll figure it out," he said quietly. "Together." Lyra looked up at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. She wanted to argue, but something in his tone made her pause. Her markings glowed softly again. this time warm, calm, almost like a heartbeat. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, feeling a strange rhythm inside him, not his own, like someone breathing in sync with him. He closed his eyes and saw flashes. Bright purple light, Lyra's eyes, her sadness, her voice whispering his name. In the next room, Lyra sat quietly, eyes closed, her markings glowing faintly, her hand pressed over her chest. She could feel him too, his calmness, his confusion, his strange human warmth, and it scared her, because deep inside, she knew what an empath link meant if it grew stronger. It could merge their emotions completely. One heart could begin to control the other. One soul could begin to fade. She whispered into the silence, "I have to end this before it's too late." But her heart beat once, twice, then softly synced with his again, glowing brighter in the dark. The next morning began with silence again. But this time it felt different, heavier. Ethan woke up feeling strange. His body was fine, but his chest felt tight, like something inside him was pulling softly. He got up and looked at the window. The city below shimmered under the twin suns, but the world around him felt distant, like a dream. He walked to the kitchen, half awake, and stopped. Lyra was already there, sitting quietly with a mug in her hands. The glow on her skin was dim, her eyes tired. She didn't look at him. "You didn't sleep again," he said softly. She shook her head. "I can't," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, I see your memories. Flashes of things I don't understand." Ethan froze. "My memories?" "Yes," she said quietly. "When you think about something, I feel it. It's not clear, but I can sense the emotions around those thoughts." She took a slow breath. "It's getting stronger." He sat across from her, watching the small lights move across her arms like flowing rivers. "So what do we do?" he asked. Lyra stayed silent for a long moment, her glowing eyes focused on her mug. Then she whispered, "There's something I didn't tell you." Ethan leaned forward. "What is it?" She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "The empath link isn't just emotional, it's biological. It connects life energy, heart rhythm, and thought flow. If it continues, it could merge our systems completely." He blinked, confused. "Merge? You mean, like, become one?" Lyra nodded slowly. "In a way, yes. My people call it the soul bridge. It only forms between two beings who share unguarded emotion. It's rare, and between different species, it's considered dangerous. No one knows what might happen." Ethan leaned back, trying to take it in. "So that's why you've been so afraid," he said quietly. She nodded, her voice low. "My people believe such links can destroy the weaker mind. Humans are emotionally volatile. Your energy is loud, heavy, unpredictable. If I can't stabilize it, it could break me." Ethan frowned, guilt washing over him. "I never meant for this to happen." "I know," she whispered. "It wasn't your fault. But now we have to find a way to stop it before it's too late." He looked at her and saw how exhausted she was, her hands shaking slightly, her glow unstable. She wasn't just scared, she was suffering. "Then let's fix it," he said firmly. "You're a scientist, you know how this works. Maybe we can undo it." Lyra gave a faint smile. "You sound so sure," she said softly. "But this isn't just science, Ethan. It's life energy, emotion. Something even my people don't fully understand." Ethan stood up, pacing slowly. "There has to be something," he muttered. "Some way to break the link." Lyra hesitated, then turned to her console, pulling up data holograms. Glowing patterns appeared in the air, showing two pulsing light forms connected by a thin beam of energy. "This," she said, "is our resonance field. It's already synchronizing, see here." She pointed at the overlapping wave patterns. "It's merging phase by phase." Ethan stared at it, the lines pulsing slowly in rhythm with their heartbeats. "That's us?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Yes, your body emits energy, heat, motion, emotion, all converted into rhythm. My body translates it through resonance. Now they're connected." He watched in awe. "It's beautiful," he said. Lyra's expression hardened. "It's dangerous," she said sharply. "If the pattern completes, I might lose my individuality." Ethan turned toward her. "Then we have to stop it before that happens." She nodded. "There is a lab on the east side of the city. They study resonance control. I worked there once. If anyone can help." "It's them," Ethan agreed immediately. "Then let's go." Lyra hesitated, her eyes softening. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you don't have to come. This is my fault." "Not yours." He smiled faintly. "We're linked, remember? I'm already in it, he said. If something happens to you, I'll feel it too, for a moment. She didn't answer. Her eyes shimmered softly, the markings on her skin glowing warmer. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She just nodded. They left the apartment later that night. The streets of Vereen 5 glowed under neon lights. Ships drifted across the skyline like silent stars. Ethan followed her through narrow alleys and glowing walkways until they reached a tall building marked with alien symbols. Inside, the air smelled like ozone and electricity. Lyra spoke quietly to the guards, her voice calm, professional. They led them through a corridor lined with light panels and humming machines. The chief researcher, an older Thalrin male, looked at her with surprise. Lyra, I thought you were off-world, he said. I need help. She replied, a resonance accident. Cross-species. The alien frowned. Cross-species? That's forbidden. Ethan felt out of place, but he stood beside her, the glow on her skin pulsing faintly again. The older alien looked at him, then back to her. You bonded with a human? He asked sharply. Lyra lowered her head. It wasn't intentional, she said softly. The researcher sighed. You know the risks. The link could destroy your nervous system, or worse. Transfer consciousness, Ethan swallowed hard. Transfer consciousness? The alien nodded. Yes, if the energy balance fails. One mind could absorb the other. Lyra's hands tightened. Then help us stop it, she said firmly. He looked at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Prepare the chamber, he said to his assistants. Ethan and Lyra followed him deeper inside. The hallways grew darker, filled with a low vibration. As they entered the resonance lab, the walls shimmered like liquid glass, and in the center stood a platform surrounded by glowing rings. Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes glowing softly. This is our only chance, she whispered. If we fail, the link might kill us both. Ethan looked at her. Calm but determined, then let's not fail, he said. She gave a small smile, though her eyes trembled. As the machines began to hum, light filling the room, the connection between them pulsed brighter than ever, unseen by everyone else, a silent bond growing stronger with every beat. The lab was silent except for the steady hum of energy coils. Blue lights flickered on the walls, and the air shimmered faintly with static. Ethan stood beside Lyra on the circular platform, his heart racing as cables and glowing tubes surrounded them. The Thalrin researchers moved quickly, adjusting panels and checking readings. Lyra took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. Her markings glowed faintly under the lab lights. She turned to Ethan and whispered, Once it starts, don't move. No matter what you feel, he nodded. His eyes focused on her. What will it feel like? He asked. She looked away. Like everything inside you is being pulled apart and shown to the universe, she said quietly. The chief researcher activated the control board. Resonance stabilizers online, he said. Initiate synchronization test. A low hum filled the room. The floor beneath them vibrated. Beams of soft light rose around their bodies. Twisting slowly in the air, Ethan felt warmth rush through his chest, then cold. His vision blurred for a moment. He could feel Lyra's heartbeat echoing faintly inside him, like a second rhythm living within his own. Lyra gasped, her eyes glowing bright white. It's starting, she whispered, her voice trembling. Her hands gripping the edge of the platform. Her breathing fast, stabilized the frequency. The researcher shouted, Her resonance is overloading. Ethan looked at her in panic. Lyra! What's happening? She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Your emotions, they're too strong, she said. Your memories are pushing through the link. I can't block them. Suddenly Ethan saw flashes, his childhood on Earth, his mother's face, his first flight off-world, the cold space outside the window, and then he saw through her eyes. Her home world of Thalrin, purple skies and glowing oceans, towering crystal cities filled with music and light. He saw her family, her laughter, her loneliness. And the day she left everything behind to study humans, their minds were touching, their lives spilling into each other like light and shadow mixing in water. The researcher's voice cut through the hum. The energy link is reversing. If we don't stop it, they'll merge. Lyra opened her eyes wide. No, if you stop now, it will kill him. She shouted, I can handle it. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice came out as a whisper. Lyra, don't hurt yourself. She looked at him, her glowing eyes full of pain and warmth. You don't understand if I let go now. You'll disappear, she said softly. Our link has balanced. I'm holding you together. The machines around them sparked. Arcs of light shot across the room. The platform cracked with energy. Lyra reached out and grabbed Ethan's hand. The moment their fingers touched, the light exploded. The researchers shielded their eyes. Alarms blared, readings spiked off the charts. One shouted, "They're fusing the fields manually!" "That's impossible!" Inside the light, Ethan and Lyra floated weightlessly. Surrounded by swirling colors, their thoughts connected completely. He could feel her fear, her sadness, her wonder, and she could feel his hope, his calm, his human heart that refused to let go. "Time slowed? Why are you doing this?" she asked in his mind, her voice soft and close. "Because I can't let you fight this alone," he replied. "If the link is ours, we'll face it together." Her glow pulsed brighter. "You foolish human," she whispered, "always trying to protect others." "And you," he said gently, "always trying to carry the universe on your own." The lights flared once more. Brighter than before, the machines overloaded and shut down. Silence filled the lab. When the smoke cleared, Ethan and Lyra were lying on the floor, unconscious but alive, their hands still locked together. Faint streams of blue light flowed between their palms. The researchers rushed forward, scanning them. "The link is stable," one whispered in disbelief. "Their frequencies merged completely, but both survived." The chief researcher looked shocked. "That shouldn't be possible," he said softly. "Two different species should reject fusion." Lyra opened her eyes slowly, her breathing steady, her markings glowing softly. She turned her head and saw Ethan beside her, unconscious but breathing. "He's alive," she whispered, relief flooding her face. She sat up slowly, her body trembling. The world felt different, quieter, lighter. She could still feel Ethan's presence in her mind, but it was no longer painful. It was warm, like a heartbeat echoing softly at the edge of her thoughts. The researcher stepped closer. "Lyra, what did you do?" She looked at him calmly. "We didn't resist the link," she said. "We accepted it." He stared at her in disbelief. "You mean you allowed full emotional synchronization?" Lyra nodded. "Yes," she said softly, "and it worked." Ethan groaned and sat up slowly, his vision blurry. "Did we make it?" he asked. Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes," she said. "But it's not over yet," the researcher warned. "You both need to be monitored. This kind of connection has never existed before. We don't know what side effects it may have." Ethan looked at Lyra, his hand still holding hers. "We'll take the risk," he said quietly. She looked at him, her eyes glowing softly with emotion she could no longer hide. "Then we'll face it together," she whispered as they left the lab. The night sky above Virine 5 shimmered with distant stars. Two beings from different worlds now walking side by side, their hearts and minds bound by something that defied science, defied logic, and maybe even defied fate. Neither of them noticed how the lights of the city flickered faintly as they passed, pulsing gently in rhythm with their shared heartbeat. The air outside the lab felt different, quiet but alive. The city of Virine 5 glowed under the soft light of its twin moons. Traffic hummed far below. Lights shimmered on glass towers, yet to Ethan and Lyra, everything felt slowed, distant. Every sound and every breath seemed connected somehow. They walked together in silence, the cool wind brushing against them. Lyra's markings glowed softly beneath her collar, each pulse in perfect rhythm with Ethan's heartbeat. She felt it deep inside, the quiet hum of his life force mixing with hers. It no longer hurt, no longer confused her. It simply existed, calm and warm. Ethan glanced at her as they walked. "You okay?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly. "Yes." "I think so," she said, "for the first time in days." "It doesn't feel painful," he chuckled quietly. "That's good news," he said, then paused. "But what now?" Lyra looked ahead, her glowing eyes reflecting the city lights. "Now we learn to live with it," she said. "The link isn't something we can erase. It's part of us." He nodded. "Then we make it work." As they reached their apartment, the familiar hum of the air filters greeted them. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling strangely at peace. Lyra walked to the window and looked out at the city, her hair swaying gently with the breeze. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly, not turning around. He shook his head. "No, do you?" She hesitated. "No," she whispered. "I was afraid at first, but now it feels like I've been running from something I didn't need to fear." He stepped closer, standing beside her. "Maybe this isn't an accident," he said softly. "Maybe the universe knew what it was doing." Lyra smiled slightly, her glow brightening. Humans always think everything has meaning, she teased gently. Maybe we just hope it does, he replied. His voice warm. For a long time, they stood together in silence, watching the stars drift across the violet sky. The room filled with soft moonlight and the faint hum of life around them. Days passed, then weeks. Their connection grew stronger. They began to sense each other's emotions without words. When Ethan felt tired, Lyra would grow quiet and peaceful. When Lyra was anxious, Ethan would suddenly feel the need to comfort her. Small actions happened naturally, as if guided by something unseen. At work, Ethan noticed he could sometimes predict machine failures seconds before they happened. He didn't understand why until Lyra explained. "You're feeling my precognition," she said one night. "My people sense energy patterns now that we share resonance. You're learning it too," he grinned. "So I'm becoming part alien?" She laughed softly. "Maybe a little," she said. "But I think I'm becoming a bit human too." Their laughter echoed through the room, warm and natural. Something neither of them expected to share weeks ago. But not everything was easy some nights. Ethan would wake up breathless, his heart racing. Seeing flashes of distant stars and alien oceans, Lyra would appear in his room, already awake, her markings glowing fast. "It's the link," she would whisper. "Our minds are syncing again." Deeper this time. He would sit beside her until the energy calmed, their breathing slowly matching, the pulse between them steadying once more. One evening, they received a message from the Thalrin Research Council, warning them that the link might attract unwanted attention. The council didn't like unnatural bonds between species. They feared what might come of it. "They may order us to separate," Lyra said softly. Fear in her voice, Ethan frowned. "We can't," he said. "Not after everything we've been through." "They won't understand," she whispered. "To them, this is dangerous." He took her hand gently. "Then we show them it isn't," he said firmly. "We prove that this connection can mean something good." Lyra looked at their joined hands, her markings glowing brighter around his fingers. "You're serious?" she said softly. He nodded. More than ever. So they began to study the link together, documenting every change, every shared thought, every surge of emotion. Slowly, they turned their strange bond into research, something that could bridge two species instead of dividing them. Months passed. Word spread across the colonies. Some called it dangerous, others called it hope. The first successful emotional fusion between human and alien. A connection built not on fear or power, but on trust and empathy. One night, as they watched the stars through their window, Lyra whispered, "Do you think others will ever understand us?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe not now," he said, "but someday." "They will." Lyra leaned her head gently against his shoulder, the glow on her skin pulsing softly in the same rhythm as his heart. "When I first came here," she said quietly, "I thought humans were chaotic, unpredictable, too emotional. And now?" he asked. She smiled. "Now I think maybe that's what makes you beautiful." Ethan laughed softly. "Careful, that sounds like a compliment." She looked up at him, her eyes glowing brighter. "Maybe it is," she whispered. The room fell silent again, filled only with the faint hum of energy between them, a soft connection that no one else in the galaxy could ever understand. Outside, the stars of Vereen 5 burned brighter than ever. And for the first time, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. Not just connection, not just understanding, but peace. Ethan looked at her and smiled. "Whatever happens next," he said quietly. "We face it together," she nodded, her hand finding his again. Their fingers fitting perfectly as the moons drifted higher in the sky. Two hearts from two worlds beat as one, linked by an unbreakable bond that would echo across the stars forever.